Hello, I'm Priscilla Archangel, and my leadership insight for you today is moving from a career to a calling. Here's a question for you that I heard a number of years ago. What were you doing as a teenager that you continue to do today that has meaning for you? Now, when I heard this question years ago, it was a speaker talking to a group of people to help them understand their passions and their strengths. And I thought about it then, but then years later, when I was at a pivot point in my career, trying to decide whether to take the safe route or the risky route. Now, the safe route required less faith, and the risky route required a lot of faith. It helped me to make my decision. I recognized that there were 4 key things that I did during my teen years that I was passionate about, and now I continue those themes in my current life. The first is writing. At the tender age of 14, I sat down and wrote out the books of 1st and 2nd Corinthians in the Bible in the context of what it meant to me. Now, no one asked me to do it. I'm not even sure why I did it, but I just felt a need to do it at that time. Many years later, I wrote a book on faith-based leadership, faith-centered leadership, that took leadership lessons from a faith-based perspective and interpreted them into leadership opportunities today. A second thing I did as a teenager was speaking. Now, when I was a senior in high school, my aunt encouraged me to enter the Michigan Junior Miss pageant. And I had to think of something to do for the talent portion of that pageant. Now, I didn't sing well enough. I didn't play the piano well enough. I didn't dance well enough, all the standard things. Instead, I decided to do a dramatic reading. And I got one of the teachers at school to coach me through it. And after I delivered my dramatic reading, I got a standing ovation. It was wonderful. These days, I do speaking on a motivational and inspirational level to help audiences spur themselves to action in a variety of areas, and I love standing in front of a group of people and motivating them to action. A third thing I did as a teenager was around processes and organizations. So, after school and high school, every day I worked in a family-owned business, and I did accounts payable, accounts receivable, those types of activities. But I found that I loved the processes associated with them. In college, I was the business manager for a singing group, and there again, I handled all their bookings, all the administrative responsibilities, and I loved that. I carried that forward into my career, where I'm a big believer of having the right processes in place and having a strong organization around you. And the fourth theme for my teen years is around coaching and consulting. So I was an undergrad major in psychology, and I thought I wanted to be a therapist at the time. I did an internship in a counseling organization, and as I sat in on some sessions, I realized that I was not gifted enough to handle that role. I realized that the people that we were dealing with needed someone far more skilled than I could be. But instead, I learned the value of carrying that coaching and counseling and consulting skills over into a career in human resources and organizational development. And that formed the basis of my career. So my 30-year career became a valuable stepping stone where I developed these skills in a particular context. But now it was time to pivot and make it the primary focus of my work. I was moving into my calling. And so you may be wondering whether you are working in your career or your calling. Well, simply put, if you're working for recognition and compensation, then you have a wonderful career. But if you're working for something bigger than yourself and accomplishing more than you imagined, you have a calling. Because a calling is work that you can't not perform. It's work that comes with great passion and excitement, where you don't count the hours and you're not primarily driven by your income. And so how do you find your calling? Begin by answering these questions. Number 1, identify the theme from your teen years. What problems did you naturally solve? What did you spend time doing that no one had to make you do? Number 2, identify the things you do that add value and generate compliments from others. Number 3, write down your biggest dream, even if you can't figure out how to get from here to there. Write it down. Number 4, describe the most challenging life experience you've had and that you've overcome and identify how it's shaped you. And number 5, write down the things you do because you're passionate about them. Now what? It may take you weeks and maybe even months to go through that process of thinking through it and to write down your responses. but do so. Sometimes it's like peeling back the layers of an onion as you go through the process of self-discovery. But the only wrong answer is when you're thinking about what others expect you to say and you're not being truthful to yourself. So when you've reached the point of breakthrough, you'll know it because you'll have an aha moment. Then it's a matter of making sure that the decisions you make about your work align with your understanding of your purpose. It's a step-by-step process, and often the closer you get, you recognize that there's more opportunity for greater impact in your life. Working in your calling brings you to the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is self-actualization, where you're achieving your full potential. So if you're not already there, take the journey to finding you and pivot to your purpose. Thanks for listening.